That morning I was tending to the roses in my garden, completely unaware of what life had in store for me. My hands were buried in the soil, checking the roots of the saplings I'd just planted. Everything was normal and calm, just like any other day, until a sharp pain shot through my back. I had no idea what was about to unfold, especially with my step-nephew Taylor being there by pure coincidence. My garden had always been my sanctuary, my escape. After my husband Grant passed away, it became the one place that truly healed my soul. But that day, everything felt different. I was 67, but people would often say, "Nora, how do you manage to look so youthful at your age?" Honestly, there was no big secret. I just took care of myself, a healthy diet, regular exercise, and a determination to never lose the young woman inside me. But I'll admit, loneliness had sunk deep into my soul. My beauty might have still turned heads, but inside there was an emptiness I couldn't shake. As I was positioning one of the saplings, a sudden pain stabbed through my back. It was so sharp and unexpected that I dropped everything I was holding. For a moment I closed my eyes, trying to breathe through the pain, but it didn't help. The ache spread from my shoulder down my back, leaving me frozen in place, unable to move. Then, out of nowhere, I heard Taylor's voice, "Nora, are you okay?" My step-nephew Taylor, 22 years old, broad shoulders, muscular build, and the kind of face you'd see on a magazine cover. His blonde hair shimmered in the sunlight, and his piercing eyes were locked on me with concern. He had this natural charm, the kind that caught everyone's attention, even though he didn't seem to notice it himself. And now, all that youthful energy seemed completely focused on helping me. "My back," I managed to say, pointing to the spot where the pain was worst. "Something's wrong. I can't move. Are you ready for this? Because this isn't just any story. This is a journey where boundaries blur, emotions get tangled, and confessions linger like silent screams. Every moment might stir something inside you, pushing the limits of what you thought you knew." If this sounds like your kind of story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications to support me. Taylor crouched down beside me. "Let me help," he said. When his big hands touched my shoulders, I felt an involuntary shiver run through me. "I'll give you a massage, it usually helps," he added. I didn't have the strength to protest, I was willing to try anything to ease the pain. But what really caught me off guard was the effect his touch had on me. Taylor placed his hands on my back and began pressing gently. I have to admit, I hadn't felt this kind of closeness in years. His fingers were strong but surprisingly gentle. As they moved over my tense muscles, the pain slowly faded, replaced by a strange warmth spreading through me. It was as if the lonely woman inside me had suddenly been awakened. I let out a breath, a little too deep maybe. "Taylor?" I started to say, but the words caught in my throat. I couldn't finish. He didn't say anything either, just kept massaging, his hands gliding over my back in a way that made me hyper-aware of every touch. In that moment, I felt something shifting. And it both scared me and excited me in ways I wasn't prepared for. Taylor kept working his hands across my back, steady and deliberate, until he suddenly paused and leaned closer to look at me. "Nora? This is really bad," he said, his voice serious and concerned. "We can't fix this out here in the garden. Let's get you inside near the fireplace. The warmth will help, and I'll grab some cream to rub on your back. We've got to take care of this." I hesitated for a second, but the pain made the decision for me. I nodded, and he helped me to my feet. "Careful, take it slow," he said, his strong hands supporting me. There was something oddly comforting about how he held me, a closeness I hadn't felt in years. When we got inside, the crackling fire filled the room with a warm golden glow. The heat wrapped around me like a blanket, instantly easing some of the tension in my body. Taylor quickly spread a blanket on the floor and motioned for me to lie down. "You need to stretch out your back in a more comfortable position," he said, his eyes serious but with a flicker of hesitation. "I've got some cream, it'll help loosen those muscles." I lay down, feeling the fire's warmth seep into me, as Taylor rubbed the cream between his hands to warm it up. The first touch of his hands on my shoulders made me let out a breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding. "Just relax," he said softly, "you'll feel better in no time." But every touch of his hands was doing more than just easing my physical pain. It was stirring something inside me, something I thought I buried a long time ago. As his fingers moved down my back, my thoughts became both clearer and more chaotic. Taylor's touch wasn't just healing, it was awakening. For a moment I hesitated inside, but the pain was too much, so I quickly accepted. Taylor gently grabbed my arm and helped me to my feet. "Take it slow, be careful," he said. When his strong hands almost completely wrapped around me, I felt an odd sense of security. This young guy's protectiveness gave me a closeness I hadn't felt in years. When we entered the house, the flames in the fireplace painted the room in a warm orange glow. The crackling of the fire and the heat that filled the room instantly relaxed me. Taylor quickly spread a blanket on the floor and motioned for me to lie down. "You need to loosen your back in a more comfortable position," he said, his eyes still serious but flickering with something softer. "I brought some cream too, this will soften those muscles." I lay down, feeling the warmth wrap around my body, and Taylor squeezed the cream into his hand, rubbing it between his palms to warm it up. The first touch of his hands on my shoulder made me involuntarily take a breath. "Relax," he said softly, "you'll feel better now." But with every touch, I could feel something changing. His hands weren't just giving me physical relief, they were stirring up emotions inside me that I'd buried for years. As his fingers moved over my back, my thoughts were calming, but also getting mixed up. Taylor's touch was slow but sure, going deeper in both physical and emotional ways. "It's no wonder your muscles are so tight," he said, his voice carrying a warmth that caught my attention. "You're taking on too much, Nora, the garden, the housework, you need to think about yourself too." I tried to explain myself, "The garden is my therapy, Taylor, without it." "I know," he interrupted, his touch softening just a bit. "But you need more than just the garden, you need someone, people, someone who cares about you." His words warmed me even more than the fire, but they also made me uneasy. I didn't fully understand what he meant, or maybe I did, but I didn't want to accept it. At that moment, his hands moved slightly lower on my back, continuing the massage. The warmth of his touch loosened the tight spots, but inside, it was creating a different kind of knot. Being this close to him felt both reassuring and terrifying. "Taylor," I finally said, my voice shaky. "You're really helping but..." "I know," he said, his voice slower this time, "but everything will be okay. Just relax, Nora." I could feel his words were more than just simple advice. Like the flames of the fire, his presence was growing closer with every second. Taylor's hands gently slid lower down my back. As each muscle loosened with his touch, a strange sense of unease began to take over me. His warmth moved deeper, slow, but determined. In that moment, my mind started to cloud, and an internal struggle was born. "Nora, stay calm," I told myself, but I couldn't seem to control it. As his warm hands moved lower, closer to my shoulders, my heart started pounding. On one side, it was Taylor's proximity, and on the other, the boundaries that years had set in place. Suddenly, the voice inside me screamed loudly, "He's your step-nephew, Nora. You shouldn't be doing this." The fireplace had filled the whole room with a warm light, but after a while, that heat became unbearable. When I saw Taylor wipe the sweat from his forehead, my eyes couldn't help but drift to him. Suddenly, he pulled up the bottom of his shirt, lifting it off. His muscular, sun-kissed body practically glowed in the firelight, almost like a sculpture. It's hard to explain what I felt in that moment. I hadn't felt this close to anyone in years. "This heat from the fire is too much," he said, dropping his shirt to the floor. His tone was casual, but the depth in his gaze left me frozen. Then his eyes met mine. "Nora, you're getting really hot too," he said, his voice soft but firm. "You'll feel worse if you keep that shirt on. Let me help you." My words got stuck in my throat. I thought about pushing back, but the sweat on my skin and the room's temperature had become unbearable. Slowly, I nodded. Taylor knelt next to me and reached for the hem of my shirt. I could feel his warm hands on my skin. The touch sent a shiver through me, but it wasn't cold, it was a kind of heat. He carefully pulled my shirt up, gently working it around my hair, and finally took it off and set it aside. At that moment the air between us grew thicker. His eyes lingered on me for a second before he quickly turned his head away. Still, I didn't need to see his face to know the chaos those looks created inside me. "Nora?" Taylor said, his voice deeper, softer than before. "Do you feel better now?" "I think so," I replied, my voice cracking. My words couldn't hide the storm inside me. It wasn't just the heat, it was the warmth coming from Taylor's presence that was enveloping me. "Come on," he said, reaching out his hand. "Let's go sit on the couch, you're uncomfortable here." I took his hand. The moment our fingers touched, I felt an electricity I hadn't felt in years. As he helped me to my feet, his strong arms kept me steady for a moment. Taylor's protective nature felt so clear, so natural, that the fears inside me began to melt away. When we got to the couch, he gently sat me down. He sat beside me immediately, but he made sure there was enough space between us. Even so, the tension in the room hadn't gone anywhere. There was something unspoken between us, but it was so hard, maybe impossible, to put it into words. Trying not to get lost in the depth of his gaze, I fought to suppress the turmoil inside me. But one thing was clear. Tonight, it was almost impossible to deny the weight of our feelings. After we sat down, the silence between us deepened with the crackling of the fire. My heart was beating so fast in my chest I could almost hear it. Taylor sitting next to me, his presence, his breath even, was affecting me. Being this close to him made me feel both nervous and strangely at peace. I turned my head for a moment, and our eyes met. There was something in his gaze, maybe curiosity, maybe something deeper. In that closeness, it was impossible to ignore the look in his eyes, deep, intense but also soft. In that moment it felt like the world had stopped. Taylor slowly reached his hand out to mine. When his fingers touched mine, a shiver ran through me. He wasn't saying anything, but there was so much in the silence. His gaze lingered on my lips for a second, and in that moment, everything changed. He leaned toward me slowly. He was so close, his breath leaving a warmth on my skin. The voices inside me stopped. There was no right or wrong anymore. In that moment, there was only Taylor's eyes and his closeness to me. I closed my eyes and leaned in just a little toward him. When our lips met, it felt like time had stopped. The first touch was gentle, soft, and exploratory. But within seconds that gentleness turned into something more intense. His warmth, his breath, the feel of his lips, everything seemed detached from reality. The loneliness, fear, and longing that had built up inside me were somehow merging with him in that moment. This wasn't just a kiss. It was the expression of years of bottled up emotions, suppressed desires, and maybe even a hidden bond. As the kiss deepened, his hands gently roamed over my cheeks. My hands instinctively gripped his shoulders, the warmth of his skin radiating through my palms. Finally, we both pulled away at the same time. When our eyes met, our breaths were uneven, but the bond between us felt stronger than ever. Was there anything to say? I wasn't sure, but one thing was clear. Tonight, nothing between us would ever be the same. After the kiss, I realized I was breathless. My heart was pounding like it was about to burst out of my chest. When I looked into Taylor's eyes, I saw both a question and a deep desire. In that moment my mind went completely quiet. My heart and body were the ones making the decisions now. "Taylor," I said, my voice shaky but my feelings clear. "Yes, I want you. I want you." The words left my lips, and something inside me snapped. The loneliness and fears I'd carried for years seemed to melt away in an instant. All that mattered was being here, right here, with him, in this moment. Taylor's face showed a brief flash of surprise, but then a slow smile spread across his face. The expression in his eyes mirrored the warmth surrounding me. "I want you too, Nora," he said, his voice both soft and firm. "I've been trying to hold back, but I can't anymore. I want you. I want to be with you." His words spread through me like waves, every word touching my heart. Taylor gently cupped my face in his hands and moved closer to me once more. This time there was no hesitation. We both knew exactly what we wanted. When his lips met mine again, the intensity of our emotions went beyond words. This moment was a turning point for me. Taylor's presence, his warmth, his words. Despite all my fears, I wasn't planning to stop anything now. I hadn't stopped anything. I had completely let myself go with the flow of my feelings. Now, with nothing but a thin sheet over us, breathless and tangled up in each other, Taylor was lying next to me. With a small smile on my face, I looked up at the ceiling and noticed our shirts and pants scattered on the floor. The night felt so surreal. It was like a dream. Taylor turned to face me, that captivating smile still on his face. His hand gently touched my cheek, his thumb briefly grazing my lips. "Nora," he said, his voice deep and soft. "I wouldn't trade this moment for anything." I turned to him, filled with the mixed emotions still running through me, and said in a voice full of gratitude, "Thank you, Taylor. I haven't felt this lonely in a long time. But you? You being this big, young and handsome? I really like it." I had no intention of hiding the sincerity and thankfulness in my eyes. Taylor's lips curved upward, his signature charming smile spreading across his face. "Nora, do you know how beautiful you are?" he said. "And I'm not just talking about your looks, being with you, it's a totally different feeling. Your warmth, your sincerity, everything. You make me feel better about myself." I couldn't tear my eyes away from his. His words. His touch. Everything was so real and impactful that I wanted to etch this night into my memory forever. "I needed you, Taylor," I said honestly. "And you were here. I couldn't ask for more." Taylor smiled slightly and ran his fingers along the edge of the sheets. "I'll be coming here a lot, Nora. From now on, whenever you need me, I'll be here," he said, his voice carrying a tone of determination and sincerity. "Just to see you. Just to give you these moments." In that moment, I felt like a new door was opening in my life. The burdens and loneliness of the past were slowly fading behind me. Having Taylor by my side, filled me with a deep sense of trust and peace. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and moved a little closer to his warmth. This night was only the beginning for me. The first steps of a new journey, and knowing I wasn't alone anymore, was more valuable than anything. I hope you liked my story. It really was an exciting journey, and I'm so happy to share it with you. If you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. If you turn on notifications, you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. Also, your likes and comments mean the world to me. Hearing what you think and how you feel really motivates me. Your support helps me write more,